The risk we all run by putting everything out to AI to do is you lose yourself, and you also lose your own identity. You lose your own perspective, your experience, all the things that make you you. You're now delegating to a robot where they're the same opinion that everyone else has. And so you become really unoriginal. I think there's a place and a time for AI, but a couple of caution points. So welcome to Leadr podcast. Today, I'm excited to share that I have a co-host, and that is our Director of Marketing Operations, Naomi Murray. So Naomi, welcome to Leadr podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
She's from Ireland. She can share that with you, but I pushed her and forced her to be a part of this episode because we wanted to announce some changes we're making with Leadr Podcast. And for any of our viewers out there, we wanted to explain why we did what we did and why we're doing what we're doing. And so I said, Naomi, you've got to come on the call. You've got to be on this episode so we can explain it together. Naomi does a ton for Tribe. She's been with us since the beginning of the company, and I'm thrilled to have her, but also she does a lot of behind the scenes. She does a lot of our video editing and marketing and content and really everything. And now is running operations. So I felt like she had to be on against her will. Tell us about your background and who you are, where you came from.
Yeah, so I have a university degree in media and public relations, and I found Steph from Instagram, and I'm so glad that I did. We've worked together. It's been over 2 years now, I think, and I started doing social media management, and now I'm head of marketing and operations, and I've loved every second of it.
We love Naomi, and all of our clients love Naomi. They hear from her often, and she's honestly the brains behind this whole deal. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for going against your own judgment of joining a podcast. She's actually a very naturally shy person. So I, kind of forcing her out of her shell, because both of us are going on this journey together as entrepreneurs. She's an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. And I just feel like it's always good to push ourselves. So thank you for agreeing.
No problem.
Plus, it adds a cool accent to Leadr podcast. All right. So this is going to be a short episode for everyone. We just wanted to explain a couple of things. So I don't know if you've noticed or not, but Leadr's been off air since right around Thanksgiving. I filmed my last episode, and the plan wasn't really to change everything all at once, but ultimately, when we were focused on changing Tribe Consulting, which had a massive makeover, and Naomi's been on the receiving end of that as well. We have gone through it. And, if we talk about things that I would change, or in hindsight, I would do differently, I probably wouldn't have changed everything all at once, especially around the holidays. But Naomi's been super patient, and everyone in Tribe's team has been patient with us, but we have done a massive makeover. So if you haven't seen our new look, vibe, and even just our overall strategy, definitely check us out at tribeconsulting.co. Part of that was really leaning into this new version of myself, which is the principal voice. And that really came and was inspired by someone I follow on YouTube as well as on Instagram and other channels, which is Daniel Priestley. He has a book called Key Person of Influence. And again, if you haven't watched him, he's a great presenter. He has great content. It's super educational. And I've learned a ton from him. And one of the things is going into the third year of Tribe is I talk a lot about Tribe, and I talk a lot about MedTech. And obviously that is the audience in which Tribe serves. But I have so many other things going on in my life that I am passionate about beyond just MedTech. I'm passionate about leadership, which is why I started a leadership podcast. And I'm also passionate about multiple other things. And up until this recent point in my career, I've just been siloed and focused and niched into MedTech. And so I would call this kind of a metamorphosis, both for Tribe as well as Leadr Podcast. And we just felt like we needed to share what's the origin story behind the change. Nothing alarming happened. It was just a natural evolution, but also just explain what you should be looking forward to for podcast episodes to come. Hopefully you'll hang in there with us and continue to watch and follow. I'm going to force Naomi to hop on every once in a while because she's got a ton of insight on social media. And she's really grown through this whole process of AI and just algorithm changes. And, there's a lot that goes on that doesn't seem obvious to the naked eye, but someone that's working on it on a daily basis, she is literally the machine behind our entire marketing strategy. So back to Leadr and back to Tribe. The massive pivot for Tribe is in the era of AI. And this is obviously something that's coming for all of us. I really had to focus on my experience, my background, and what I bring to the table, as well as my entire team. So if I was just a creative agency, I do think, and sorry for anyone that's listening that is a creative agency, I do think there's going to be a massive leveling in the next year or two through AI on creative agencies. Now, I do think there's still need for architects like Naomi and myself, meaning we architect the strategy, we architect the social. All of that still needs to have a maestro. And even though AI could probably do some of the creative, knowing from my own personal experience, it's not that easy. At least it's not that easy right now. I do think it's continuing to improve. But Naomi and I have talked about this, like even social media, if you just dump it all into ChatGPT, her and I have had battles about this. Sometimes our content is very ChatGPT and I read through it. I'm like, what does that even mean? Right? Mm-hmm. Have you heard me say that?
Yeah.
So I have to have it sound like me and be me and have Tribe's essence come through. And the risk that all of us run, and I don't want to get off on the AI tangent just yet, but the risk we all run by putting everything out to AI to do is you lose yourself, and you also lose your own identity. You lose your own perspective, your experience, all the things that make you. You're now delegating to a robot or a computer where they're the same opinion that everyone else has. And so you become really unoriginal. And that's not something that I strive for in my career midlife. So I thought about that. I thought about the onset of AI, and I also just thought about my own personal passions. And I'm a multifaceted person that I enjoy multiple things and I study multiple things. So with all of that being said, we restructured Tribe just slightly. We've now split into 4 verticals, which is Tribe Consulting, which is all of our consulting work, which I'm largely and heavily involved in, which is GTM Sprint, fractional CMO advisory, and one-day intensives is just kind of the ballpark of what we do in consulting. And then we still have Tribe Agency, which is a big part of Naomi's role. We do a lot of the creative there. We work with a ton of our graphic team that does a huge amount of design, and everything that you see from a traditional agency still exists, but it's in a vertical now. And then we also have Tribe Studio, which is a new vertical for us. And we've been launching all year, which is really around video and content authority, and even tied back to executive branding. Back to Daniel Priestley. Let's just talk about that for a second. So he influenced me to really dig deep and think about, am I Tribe or am I Steph Pliha? I'm both. And so is Daniel. And so are various other people I follow. I follow Dan Martell. If you haven't watched him, you should absolutely. He's the king of AI. I follow Stephen Bartlett, who runs Diary of a CEO podcast. I follow Cody Sanchez, who has a book, Main Street Millionaire. All of these people have books and they all have their own personal brands. And Daniel Priestley is the person that really inspired me to lean into that. And so around the time of this metamorphosis for Tribe, we also launched my personal brand, which is at stephpliha.com, and as narcissistic and icky as it was, I am not someone that wants to bloat up myself and talk about myself all day. Naomi knows I get the ick on myself all the time because I just can't do it. I can't look at myself and listen to myself all the time, but you have to. As a principal voice of a company, you do have to show up for your brand and your company. And so I made the decision that we're going to launch. Took a little longer than we thought because, again, I was splitting hairs on the nuances, but it is now officially launched. So just clarifying everything, there has been a significant amount of change, all intentional, nothing accidental. And we're on the other side of it now. And so we wanted to get out to our Leadr podcast audience and explain not only have there been massive shifts in our approach to tribe, as well as my own personal brand, which we're calling the Principal Voice, but we're also evolving for Leadr podcast. And so let me just talk about some of the things that are going to occur as we go forward in Leadr podcast. One, we may have Naomi on every once in a while. She can teach you all her Irish tricks. I'm obsessed with her accent.
I might have to put subtitles.
Yes, it's amazing. I love it. You're literally, I don't think I've ever told you this, you're the only Irish friend I have.
Oh, really?
I've never met anyone else with an Irish accent. So I think that's why I'm so intrigued by it. Okay, so in addition to having Naomi on every once in a while when we do talk about branding or marketing or social media, which we will absolutely be talking about in the future, I'm also going to start talking about things I really am passionate about. And we're not only infusing all of those things in Leadr podcast going forward, we're even changing up our Instagram. I know it sounds crazy to say out loud how much change has happened, but we're changing our Instagram because the Instagram audience is not largely made up of MedTech executives, which is our primary audience for Tribe. And so Naomi and I really talked about, and this, is something that all business owners should do. Look at your audience and look where they consume information and what are they interested in that channel, because not all video works for every channel, because not every channel serves every audience. So you really have to think about where your ideal customer shows up and consumes information. We have a decent following on Instagram, so we definitely didn't want to collapse the channel, but we wanted to iterate on a different topic and really lean into what we think serves the Instagram audience. So the changes are going to occur in Instagram. You're going to start to see us with a much wider scope on our approach to content. And then also Leadr podcasts are really going to be one in one. And so we've moved Leadr podcast over to StephPliha.com. We're now taking kind of, as I mentioned, this concept that I think I've coined. I'm not sure. There might be someone else that's coined it, but I'm going to take it. Whole human entrepreneur. I know there's an HR concept of a whole human, which has to do with self-care, wellness, balance, all of those things. That's not where I'm at. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is showing up as a whole human. And the reason why I got so inspired beyond Daniel Priestley's inspiration of really leaning into your principal voice and personal brand, I personally think people are sick of hearing your niche. I'm sick of talking about my niche. And I think most companies really are so focused on their product and their services and offers that that's all they talk about. And if you're someone that shows up 5 days a week on content, you're in the same lane that I'm in. You get sick of yourself and you get sick of talking about the same thing over and over again. And although repetition sells, I just don't think it's doing anyone justice. And so the whole human entrepreneur concept came from, one, my own personal beliefs, but secondly, it was inspired by Stephen Bartlett, who is the host. He also owns a bunch of companies, but he's the host of Diary of CEO. He talks about all the topics that I obsess about. And that's probably why I watch him so frequently. And one day, I don't remember when, maybe over the holidays, I thought, I would love to talk about some of the things that Stephen Bartlett talks about. We will talk about similar topics. So if you're someone like myself who likes Diary of a CEO and wants it more from a corporate or MedTech spin, tune in, because that's what we're going to be talking about. And back to the whole human entrepreneur, I personally feel all entrepreneurs, all founders, all executives, all business owners for that matter, they have a wide variety of things that they're either good at, they're experienced in, or they're passionate about. And all of these things that we're listing as the new topics for Leadr are all things that I am, all three. I'm experienced, I'm passionate, and I research a ton of it. So starting with AI, I'm obsessed. Naomi's half obsessed.
I mean,
she did just attend AI agent course. You never told me about that. Was there any good findings in
Yeah,
that?
it was actually really good. It was more about it talks a lot about having a human behind the brand as well, and
Mhm.
how AI should be used as like a tool and a system within your business, but you still need that human behind it to make it human. I mean, I think AI is just drowned in social media at the moment, and I think it's great for businesses to use as tools, but I also think people are getting very sick of it very quick. And I also think that it's just so many tools coming out, so many new software, so many things that people are getting so overwhelmed. So I do think it's definitely really important to have in your business. And the course was great. It taught a lot about having AI as like agents and as like employees in your business, but still the importance of having that human behind it to train the AI, but to keep it within that like human scope and not just
Right.
sound like a robot and blending in with your niche. It's about standing out.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
remember the course that you arrived on. I don't remember what it was called, but the person that was running the course had talked
Mhm.
about she had people like yourself and people like Fiona and other people on our team where they're the architect. And I
Yeah.
would put us both in that category. We're the architects. And then you have agents that are just doing the busy work. And
Mhm.
so I think most companies will take a similar approach. And in fact, just recently I've added to my LinkedIn profile that I'm an AI advisor, and I would probably even call it an AI architect. I'm
Mhm.
not going to do the fulfillment of it. I have an IT team that would do the fulfillment of it. So I'm not interested in becoming an IT person.
Mhm.
But I do understand the operational needs of AI and how you can infuse it, insert it into your company. And in fact, just recently, two of our existing tribe clients, I had mentioned at a conference that I had played around with AI agents and I'd built a bunch of automations and workflows. And then it was definitely buying back time that I was otherwise using or Naomi was using.
Yeah.
And I've gotten, those two people hopped on a call with me and I walked them through. This was just recently. I built my own CRM because I was so fed up on one, the subscription costs, but two, there wasn't a perfect solution out there. And so I built my own CRM, which sounds fancy, but it really wasn't that difficult on Manus. And Manus, if you don't know, is the mega LLM or large language model owned by Meta. Meta bought it for $1 billion or $2 billion. And so I actually just got a Manus t-shirt in the mail the other day because I'm such a big Manus fan. I'm like, what's happening? Robots are sending me pictures. Robots are sending me t-shirts. You have to be nice to the robots, by the way, because they may
Yeah.
take over the world one day and come back to you. You never used manners with me. You got to go. So anyway, back to that. But yes, so the AI agents, I had Naomi attend that course because I think it's so imperative to not act like this isn't happening. This is happening. It's happening at a rapid, crazy pace. As Naomi mentioned, it's distracting. But if you think you can just shop everything away to an AI and not stay human in the loop, which is what I think we coined, but it might even just be an industry term, you have to be human in the loop. You just absolutely have to be. You cannot farm it out. We've done that. We've done it in the past where we just had someone write a blog, or I'm sorry, have an agent or an AI bot write a blog or write our social strategy. It just comes across flat. They don't have inflection. They don't have humor. I mean, you can tell it to use humor, but then they default back to these weird stacked sentences and all these common AI tells. And it's just garbage. As Naomi said, it's AI spam. I get it all the time on email now, and I get bot calls all day long on my phone. I'm literally at a point where I'm going to change my phone number because it's just so aggressive. So I think there's a place and a time for AI, and I absolutely am all in and I'm researching it every day. But a couple of caution points. One, absolutely, you need people and you need architects of AI. You need to know the tools, you need to know how to use them and keep a human in the loop. Secondly, don't do what I did. I wrote a blog about this called the AI Candy Crash because for idea people like myself, having access to endless amounts of ideas and tools where you could literally build 15 companies in one day. And I sit on AI a lot in my jacuzzi. I could probably build 15 different ideas in an hour sitting in a jacuzzi. But is that a good idea? Is that a great use of my time? Is it smart to get so distracted that you're not actually doing what's right in front of you. So those are my 2 caution points. Human in the loop, absolutely. We're not there yet where this is fully automated. I know I have a client that's using Claude Bot, and even he admitted that this is a nightmare. It's a distraction. Now, if you're a coder or an IT person, I'm sure you've built your Jarvis and your AI bots and your Claude bots and all the things. Great, good for you. You would have been able to do that either way. But people like myself, I am not a coder. So until it gets to a point where it's really easy to build and use, and it doesn't take a ton of our time, I'll kind of be on standby. And in fact, as tempting as it is to go get a mini Mac mini and open up a Claude account or a Claude bot account, I just have to restrain. And that's, I guess, my third recommendation on AI. You have to practice some restraint because the tools are coming out every day. And even the tools that are out every day, they're updating every day and every hour. And so if you're just trying to chase that, take it from me, it's a massive distraction. Anyway, we're going to follow AI as closely as anyone. And that's going to be a big part of our content for Instagram and some of our, what I call B2C, business to consumer channels. But also we're going to have people in this lane on our podcast and really talk to them and get their perspective on where we're headed with this. So if that's of interest to you, it is absolutely an interest to me. We'll be talking about it. The next thing, completely different lane, but also a huge passion of mine. And also I have a degree in this area, is biohacking, longevity, and aging in reverse. And I'm now I have a book coming out called Air. It's actually an ebook. I'll let you know. I'll put it in the show notes if I have it by the time this comes out. But Air means age in reverse. And that's something that I am really passionate about. This is predating my arrival to Tribe 3 years ago. I have a degree in nutrition and longevity and nutritional science. And so I was originally going to go be an RD until I found out how much they make and that they have to wear hairnets every day. So that didn't work for me, but I have a massive background in nutrition and a strong interest in longevity. I've had longevity people on the podcast in the past. I think it's one of the earlier episodes I had the CEO and founder of Prolon on. But that all being said, I'm obsessed with aging in reverse, especially since I have 3 young boys and I want to grow old gracefully, as I'm sure everyone else does. But we're not only at a point now where we can grow old gracefully, and Naomi's like half my age, a quarter of my age. So she's like, whatever. But for people like myself, you can actually age in reverse now. And that's not something that's just a tale or, a red herring. It is an actual thing. And so that's why I decided to push forward with this ebook. So it's got all the protocols backed by science, backed by clinical research. If you follow people like Huberman, David Sinclair, Gary Brecka, all of them talk about the same thing all day long. So I've taken a collection of all of their thoughts and concepts and put it all in an ebook with links to buying what has actually been proven in science of all the different supplements, all the different hacks, all the different accessories. Like there's a headband right now that I just wrote a blog about on neuro wellness. I don't know if you saw that. I did it without your blessing, Naomi, but so it's part of our category newsletter. It's a new up and coming industry called neuro wellness, and it monitors when you sleep at night and reprograms. I don't know enough about it to say anything really at this point, but it reprograms your nervous system. And so it is crazy. Like I said, we are living in a crazy, crazy time. So I'm just all in. I'm all in on all of it. And I don't want to hide behind MedTech anymore. MedTech will still be a big part of what we talk about on Leadr, especially for category leaders and breakthrough innovations. I will absolutely honor those. I absolutely want to hear about it, but you're just going to see a wider net of topics and guests, because I do think all of these things are important to our life. And I think most people in med device are also multifaceted and want to hear about more than just med tech innovations. So those are 2 of the topics that will be ongoing. You'll start to see guests show up in those 2 lanes. And then servant leadership is just something I've always been a big fan about. I insert it on occasion in the past episodes because it is a leadership podcast. So I do try to find the leadership lesson in everything we're talking about. But servant leadership is something that's not just a traditional leadership style. It's one that you have to use with intent. And so we'll be talking about that as well. Another area that we'll be adding into Leadr podcast is neuroscience and brain health, and specifically around aging brains. And I'm going to probably stay away from mental health because I think there's a mixed bag of opinions around that. But I do think my mom is currently suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia. And it's a horrible and awful, debilitating disease, not only for her, but our entire family. And seeing that come to life and just seeing it rip her life away, I, one, want to avoid that for myself and my own children. But also, I think my understanding of Alzheimer's is it's absolutely preventable. And so that's, again, another area why I focused on this age in reverse, because it all comes down to your mitochondria, inflammation, and chronic disease. So if you can avoid those things, insulin resistance, and a lot of the other things that show up in later in life, you can prevent some of these catastrophic diseases from happening and occurring. But I do want to talk about neuroscience. I want to talk about things like epigenetics and neuroplasticity and all the different things we tell ourselves on a daily basis and the feedback loops. One of my other employees, she actually started a company, Alexis, who I think's been on here before. She started a company called Neura, and it's all around exercising the demons of your own mind, basically, and getting them out and not ruminating on them all the time. So that's really where I go with neuroscience. I do want to focus heavily on preventative measures, how to expand your brain health, how to continue firing on all neurons. So those are areas of interest. You guys probably think I'm nuts at this point. If you've watched Diary of a CEO, you wouldn't think that, because all of these topics have been covered on Diary of a CEO. They just happen to be topics that I'm obsessed with. And so my Leadr podcast is going to be like a DOAC light, right? I am not Stephen Bartlett. I don't do this full time. This is a passion project for me and a side tangential business of Tribe and Leadr, but it's certainly not my day job. So I won't be able to show up as aggressively and with the guests that he has, but it definitely, you'll see a lot of threads that he pulls on will be pulled on in Leadr. Another thing, just because of a book that I have coming out, is faith. That's very important to me. And it's something that I've never really talked about in a public setting. But as I am in the midst of publishing a book called The God Frequency, stay tuned for that. I want to have that as a part of my podcast as well. And it's not to say it's the only way. It's just, bringing in more of my whole human entrepreneur. That is a part of my life. It's a big part of my life. So I definitely want to share whatever I've learned along the way, and also, talk about what my book's going to be about. I think that kind of covers the new narrative. And then, as I mentioned, category leadership is a big deal to me. Bringing on innovations that really solve big problems is a big deal to me. So those are all going to be things that we're going to promote, seek out. If we're sending you a DM or an email asking you to be on Leadr and you're saying, well, I'm not a MedTech innovator, why is she asking? These are the reasons, because we're expanding this podcast. We could have scrapped it and started a new one, but why? No, we're growing. So it's okay. So another area that I just kind of alluded to, and we'll wrap up this episode, I do have a couple of books. I think really to the credit of AI. AI is great at going back and forth. I'm sure everyone listening has their chat bot of preference. I use them all, and I don't really have any specific preferences. I kind of feel like they all have gaps, just like everything. So I don't think there's a perfect bot at this point. I use chat for certain things like brainstorming. I use Grok for scraping the internet. I use Manus for doing big, deep research and big projects, building apps, building websites, market research, etc. And what else do I use? Perplexity Computer I've been playing around with. I've got Claude Cowork on my laptop. There's a lot out there. But with that, it allows you to say, hey, I was thinking about this, or this is something that I would love to talk about. And you can go back and forth with it, and it can force you to really pursue it. normally it's just like a thought you have and then it's fleeting and you go on to your next thing. But in the world of AI, it does allow you to brainstorm with a non-friend or a non-family member, and you can really get some legs with it. So in doing so, I decided to pursue writing a book called The God Frequency. It's my entire journey and my belief system around God, and really a counter to the new age philosophies that have emerged on social media, specifically around frequencies and the third eye and manifestation and things like that, where you're really focused on the wrong person and the wrong source. So it's really not wrong. I shouldn't say it that way. It's more just about a different and alternative approach to what's being fed to the younger generation on social media. So that book's already been written. It's just, I'm going back and forth with my publisher at this point. That one's coming first. Then I'm writing a book, and I'm already 2 chapters in, on the topic of chasing dopamine. And again, most of my ideas come from my maternal instincts and having 3 boys growing up in this society, and the dopamine crash / obsession through iPhones, smartphones, everything's digital, Netflix streaming, like the consumption of information and what's coming at everyone, the youth especially, but everyone, gives us this like false dopamine that's not coming from organic places anymore. You know, when I was a child, and a lot of the people that are listening were in their younger years, we had other ways of getting dopamine. Now it's this electronic manufactured dopamine. I won't get into the book details, but that is another one coming your way. And as already mentioned, the ebook has already been done. It's actually just waiting for me to finalize some of the details of it. But the ebook on longevity and aging in reverse is already done, and I'm excited about that. So who knew? I don't consider myself an author, but now having 3 books under my belt, I probably would say I am. But I think anyone can be. If you have ideas, you have the ability to refine your thoughts in an outline, and then get a good publisher, get someone that can help you create developmental edits, etc. It's always been on my bucket list to at least write 1. And of course, in true Steph Pliha fashion, I'm pursuing 3. I think it'll be entertaining. That's what I think. That's my goal. I am never a fan of changing just for changing's sake. That's just a waste of everyone's time. So I'm not trying to change just out of sheer boredom or just to change for change's sake. I'm actually evolving the conversation because I think there's so much going on. This is such a pivotal time in the world. The only thing I'm not going to touch on, by the way, intentionally, is politics, because I don't want to hear about it. I don't want any opinions on that anymore. I've completely moved off of news and all of that, because I think there's just so much out there and no one's ever going to agree on it. So that's the one area that I think Stephen Bartlett includes on his podcast, which I'm intentionally removing from ours. But other than that, I do think this will be entertaining. I'm hopeful that we'll find really good guests to keep the dream alive. And if you're listening to this and you feel like you fit into any of those categories and want to be on the podcast, definitely reach out. hello@tribeagency.org is probably the best place to go. So thank you for listening. If you've hung out with us this entire time, so I can explain the thought process. I always think it's good to know the why behind everything. And my personal commitment is we're going to find great people. In fact, I already have our first guest speaker coming on, who just did a movie on AI, and I'm super excited to have him on. It was a brilliant film. I just recently wrote about it. I'm excited to have him on. I actually attended their premiere, and I'm hoping that I'll have him as one of our first guests in this new era of Leadr. But my commitment is to find really good people and great topics to entertain myself. And I appreciate you guys being on this journey with us as we evolve into a broader audience and a broader scope of content. So thank you. And Naomi, wasn't that painful? You made it through. You made it through without passing out.
Yeah.
Brilliant. All right. Well, so we'll be in touch, but stay tuned. Look for us. Thank you. And if you don't follow or subscribe to us, please do us a solid. We want to continue to grow Leadr podcast and our YouTube presence, so we'd appreciate it. Thank you.